What up, FA Nation? Justin Fensterman, James Grande here, and it's time for the DFS NBA live stream here on FantasyAlarm.com. 9 games, 9 million chances to win. We'll go over the DFS NBA playbook written by Mr. Grande today. Mr. Grande, what's going on?
Nothing, man. Just, enjoying the slate. We talked about it last night on the podcast. We're having a little technical difficulties in our ear right now. But it's a nice little 9-game slate on tap. There is so many strong plays. We mentioned on the pod last night that this is a multi-lineup entering night, and it still feels that way here at 6:10 p.m. Eastern time. I think there are too many elite plays for us to just play one bullet tonight. I think it's a multiple lineup type of night, Fancy, and I think we're going to win a lot of money tonight.
You just said bullets, James, and I thought for a second you went back in your time machine, and I'm like, they're not called the Bullets anymore. They're called the Wizards, but they've taken a lot of bullets, essentially being that yet more injuries seem to continue to come up for the Wizards. We're waiting on Bradley Beal to come back. He'll once again be out. Also, Garrison Matthews will miss some time as well. Just add another name to the injured list, James Grande. It's almost like a shopping list with how many players are out for Washington these days.
Yeah, it's not just like anybody either. It's all their key cogs. Every single one. We loved playing Davis Bertans, gone. We loved playing Rui Hachimura when Thomas Bryant, gone. I mean, it's just one after another. But as we were talking about before we hopped on air, when one guy goes down, there is opportunity galore, and probably a good time to transition in a point guard, Fancy. And we could just, since we're talking about the old Washington Bullets there, I mean, John and I, who's producing today, thanks to John for that, we're having a little discussion about Ish Smith and will he continue his heater? Well, he's only 5,200, and it's not the easiest matchup, but he hasn't had easy matchups the last 2 games going up against Boston, Denver. They've been pace down spots, but he's taken 42 shots, and that's the gaping hole when Bradley Beal is off the floor. Like, they need people to shoot the basketball, and Ish Smith is filling that void, playing over 30 minutes. I think he's a really strong play here at 52 and 58, respectively, on FanDuel and DraftKings.
Yeah, and you just said it, James, that 4 of his last 5 games, getting that 30-minute mark, getting to that 30-minute mark makes his floor very safe. And also, let's not get too technical here and let's not get too fancy. They don't have anybody else. Right. They just don't. They're literally running out of options. It's McRae. It's Isaiah Thomas, who some nights he'll be hitting his shots. Some nights he'll be missing all of his shots. So it's one or the other. They really don't have anybody else at this point. I mean, we're looking at Jan Mahimi has become a thing. Anzes Pasechniks has also become a thing at times. That's what they're down to. And Davis Bertans is expected to come back hopefully in the next couple of games for them. But even then, they'll still be without that depth, meaning Mr. Grande, I love me some Orlando Magic tonight. And one of the guys that I like personally, Markelle Fultz, a guy that has averaged 18.3 points per game. I put him in the starting 5 video, James. Reason I like him not only because of the scoring, but also will help out with the assist front as well. And the Wizards guards, without Beal especially, Fultz should have a very easy time getting in the lane. And it starts with Markelle Fultz when it comes to this Magic offense.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup is great. There's no denying it. It's a pace-up spot for Fultz. The Magic are one of the slowest teams in the league, get a nice pace boost. And Washington ranks 29th against the point guard position. So just right off the bat, 2 things that we love to see. And we love to see Fultz up approaching the 30-minute mark. And obviously gaining confidence, just oozing confidence after scoring 25, a career high. He's really coming into his own. And since John Isaac has gone down over the last couple games, he's really stepping into a leadership role almost, at least offensively, for this Magic team. So I'm there with you. It's not. I did include him up top. I didn't write him up, but I did include him up top. There are a couple guys I like more than Markelle Fultz, but I definitely like Fultz.
Of course, James, because we haven't gotten to the high-priced guys yet, you silly goose. You wrote the playbook. Let's talk about who you're prioritizing tonight at point guard.
I mean, I'm actually going to prioritize Trae Young more often than I'm prioritizing Luka Doncic. And it's primarily because we're playing James Harden. And let's just be blunt about that. We're going to be playing James Harden without Russell Westbrook. That's just what it is. And that's fine. Yeah, seeing Luka's ownership at 8% on DraftKings is kind of making me angry because I want to go pivot to him in as many lineups as I can. But then we're, going to miss out on the 100-point game from James Harden. So it's like there's, I'm pushing and I'm pulling my hair out with that. But I am prioritizing Trae Young. It's very hard not to like people on the other side of this game. Atlanta has the second highest implied total on the board today behind Houston. And that's ahead of, the league leader in points in Milwaukee. So that is noteworthy. And that's considering the pace of this game is going to be freakish. It's the highest total on the board by a mile. And every game that Young's played over his last 8 rather, that he's played out, he's gone for 50 fantasy points or more. So we're getting a 50-point floor on a guy who is in a dream matchup in a pace-up spot. It's very hard not to love Young. And 9K FanDuel is ridiculous. Let's just you can comfortably fit him, James Harden, and someone else high-priced, probably over someone I love at the small forward position, in a cash lineup, in a tournament lineup, based on the amount of value on this slate. I love Young. I love Doncic. But if I'm prioritizing point guards, it's Trae Young because I want to spend up for James Harden.
I mean, why don't we just save money anyway? I know you're kind of obsessed over the ownership percentage, Grande, but at the same time, he's just so much cheaper.
Right.
That's what turns me on to Trae Young. Besides the fact that the last time these two teams played each other, the game total was 269.
That is a big number. I don't know if the industry knows, but that that's a pretty large number. And 269, might I add.
Yes, that is one big number. So if we don't want to pay for either Trae Young or Luka Doncic, and you absolutely should pay for one of them. Grande prefers Trae Young. I like Trae Young as well, better mainly because of the price point. Some of the guys in the middle tiers, and before we go to the middle tiers, you have Kyle Lowry there, and that another good play. Grande, again, attacking the Charlotte guards, it's so easy to do. I don't do it as often as I should. Normally, I find another team to attack. It's a little bit easier, but still with the way the Hornets guards are, they could score a lot. But on the other side, at this point for Toronto, no Freddie Van Vliet. It's almost the same thing with them as it is with the Wizards. They don't really have anyone else. It's just Kyle Lowry at this point. And no, I am not going to try to be fancy and go with a guy like Patrick McCaw.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, too, because we're going to prioritize guys like Trae Young, and we're going to look for that extra money to get to Young. So Lowry's going to go under the radar, and that's probably a mistake, especially in cash game formats where, he's given us 40-plus fantasy points in 7 of his last 10, and the last 2 games without Van Vliet, I mean, he's given us 40-plus fantasy points. So that is a nice floor to have at his price tag. I don't think there's much GPP appeal to me. I think there is some GPP upside. Like if you like a 50-point ceiling, that's fine. I don't hate that for like 8,200 on FanDuel, but he profiles more to me as a cash game play with a little GPP appeal on FanDuel more than DraftKings because 8,600 there is like no wiggle room at all, Fancy. So I like Lowry for cash. I think we can expect 40 again. Like he's going to give us 40 fantasy points or maybe approach 50 and we'll be good. I mean, we'll be kicking back. Oh, nice 40 fantasy points from Kyle Lowry, drinking our mojitos and checking our all our double ups in the green for tomorrow morning.
Love me some mojitos, James Grande. And also, I have to tell you, I love me some Milwaukee Bucks tonight as well. You have for a value option, maybe better for GPPs, Eric Bledsoe. And you and I were talking before the live stream began about my concerns. And again, I know we missed on the blowout last time with the Heat versus the Wizards, but Giannis Antetokounmpo is not 100%. He's dealing with multiple ailments. And with that, one of them being sick, so he could be a little dehydrated. This is one of those games, James, where the Bucks go up pretty early, And I'm thinking that Giannis is going to be yanked from this game just to conserve him a little bit. And that's my own philosophy. So when I look at some of the other complementary weapons, like an Eric Bledsoe, who you have in the playbook, even a Chris Middleton, but for now, let's focus on Bledsoe. Nice GPP option for you tonight.
Yeah, and we've seen the minutes on the rise, which I think is crucial because he missed all that time and then he came back and he was limited. There was 15 minutes and there was 20, and we finally saw 26. And I suspect we would have seen 30 or closer to 30 if that game didn't get out of hand late. The Spurs did run away with that game, but 26 minutes is appealing, and he had his worst fantasy output in the uptick in minutes. So, he's been hovering around 30 fantasy points, and I think there's upside for more considering Golden State does play with solid pace, and we know it's obviously not a paceless spot because Milwaukee is the fastest team in terms of pace in the NBA, but Golden State bottom 10 against point guards in the NBA. So if there was one spot I would really look to for this Milwaukee team, it would be Bledsoe. I don't hate Middleton. I don't hate Giannis, but for GPPs, I definitely have some interest in Eric Bledsoe. I don't think anyone's going to play him, and I don't think anyone's going to play Lonzo Ball, who also I have mentioned. At least, with the news, I think a lot of people are going to pivot to Ish Smith. I think a lot of people are going to pivot to Markelle Fultz because that news, the Bradley Beal news is a domino effect. It doesn't just affect Washington. It also affects Orlando because now we're going to see a lot of Ish Smith defense. We're going to see a lot of Isaiah Thomas defense, even more than we would have. So I think Lonzo and Fultz and Bledsoe are definitely like my lower to mid-tier options that I love tonight.
Before we move on to shooting guards, James, any super sneaky options for us at point guard tonight?
I don't think there's. I think it's pretty cut and dry, Fancy. Yeah, if you have someone, I think we can go Aaron Holiday. I don't know if he's super sneaky, but
right.
There is no Malcolm Brogdon. He was a bust last game. I think a lot of people are going to look at that and they're going to have recency bias and they're going to say, well, we don't need to play Aaron Holiday. Look what he did last game. Well, look what Aaron Holiday's done in place of Malcolm Brogdon all this time. One game shouldn't define how you look at Aaron Holiday. He's been great for about a month. So I think Aaron Holiday, especially under 5K on FanDuel, is a really sneaky play.
I'll say this as well, and this is just from following the NBA as much as we do, James. I'll say this with Victor Oladipo's return on the horizon towards the end of the month. It's audition time,
right?
Guys like Aaron Holiday, because we know Malcolm Brogdon will be back. But when Oladipo comes back and after he has those few games, maybe a week and a half to shake that rust off, all of a sudden people are losing minutes, people are losing shots, and one of those players is going to be Aaron Holiday. So you have to start looking and considering guys like Aaron Holiday, guys even like Jeremy Lamb, guys like TJ Warren are going to have Oladipo threatening to take shots away. This is audition time, baby, and it's time to keep your real estate that you've earned, especially when you have your star coming back.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And this could even be audition time for another team too, not just for the Pacers. They could be looking to move somebody, just based on how much depth they actually have and maybe improvements to different pieces of their team. So I completely agree there, Fensty.
All right, then let's move on to shooting guard here because you're not paying up for Harden tonight, right?
I'm ignoring that. Question.
I almost had him. In Pebble, I almost had this guy. Let me just tell you. No, James Harden. Again, he's scored in the 60s. This is the easiest matchup going for him.
Easiest. We just look, guys. Just play James Harden. Fancy. Let's not waste our time.
Let's move.
Please play James Harden.
DeMar DeRozan. Here's something interesting about DeMar DeRozan, and this is something I mentioned on Alarm After Hours, which, by the way, you can hear on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, weeknights, midnight Eastern. Everyone is focusing on Ben Simmons not taking threes, Grande. DeMar DeRozan doesn't take threes. This guy is a total mid-range player at this point. However, going up against Boston tonight, still averaging over 21 points per game, he's also still in a good spot as that top option for San Antonio.
Yeah, it's not an easy matchup because we're talking about Marcus Smart looming, and we always talk about how great of a defender he is. But DDR is just in a good place. 20-plus actual points in 8 straight games. We're getting a lot of peripheral stats. He's given us 30 fantasy points in all 8 of those games. with a ceiling of 50. So there's a very nice floor ceiling combination, which we look for in cash games. I think there are better options. I think that when you move down, the two obvious that stand out to me are Kevin Huerter in this Houston-Atlanta game in this high-paced environment, and Jordan McRae, obviously. You brought it up a couple weeks ago, and I've ran with it. Shooting guards against the Magic have been a thing for about a month or two now, and they continue to get worse statistically as the season has progressed, with Evan Fournier being their weak defender, and plus there's now no Jonathan Isaac for them to say, yo, that guy's getting buckets, and obviously Jonathan Isaac presents a problem for any wing player in the world. I mean, he's a 7-foot guy with a mile of a wingspan. So they don't have that. They have Evan Fournier. Jordan McRae kind of seems like a lock and load play without Bradley Beal. Even at that 6,600 over on DK, I don't think that's too expensive considering the upside we've seen. So as much as I like DeRozan, I think there's a nice floor, and I think there could be a ceiling of about 50. I'm mostly going to Huerter. I'm mostly going to Jordan McRae. I'm also going to play a lot of J.J. Redick and Josh Hart tonight because J.J. Redick has been an excellent scorer lately, and we know there's no Drew Holiday. And how can you ignore J.J. Redick at $4,200? I mean, I don't think we should, considering where he is as a scorer right now.
Right, and what second unit can the Bulls actually put out there? They might sign you off the street, Grande, for this kind of game because they don't have a second unit. So it's very easy to play those players who are familiar with their own team's second unit and how the offense runs. That's where, especially with Holiday out too, that's where J.J. Redick comes in. Really like that one. Also see for a value, you have another one of my guys who definitely 100% benefits with Jonathan Isaac off the floor, Terrence the Sauce Ross. Because let me tell you, that shot has fallen. He's very, very saucy at this point. 4,500, 4,800 Grande. I mean, it doesn't even matter. I mean, tonight he's got Washington. It's a good matchup. But in general, this is a guy when I'm building stars and scrubs that I'm going to be looking at for the next few months while Isaac recovers.
Is the Sauce Ross, is that a Fensty given nickname, or is that a nickname by his mother?
No, that's a Fensty special. Come on.
Yeah, that is a Nick Stauskas nickname. That is still, but Nick Stauskas can no longer lay claim to that nickname because he is no longer playing in the NBA. I mean, look, we know what Terrence Ross is, and he's been good since John Isaac's been off the floor, and that's apparent. And I like the fact that he comes off the bench because he's their primary bench scorer. He's their primary second unit player. DJ Augustine has been good, so it's taken away a little from him. But, I mean, it's a really nice price. He has a nice 23% usage rate with Isaac off the floor. And it's a nice peso spot, and you mentioned it. It's the Wizards. So we could be looking at a season high in points for the Magic. And if that's the case, Terrence Ross obviously plays part in that.
Yes, you're going to be looking at a lot of Magic players. We'll continue discussing them on the DFS NBA live stream here on fantasyalarm.com. Let's move on to small forwards. And James, this is no joke what I'm about to say because I said it before and I'll say it again. When making the starting five, I thought about Giannis, obviously in a great matchup. But again, James, I'm worried about the minutes with him. And I personally, someone else I like for shooting guard, I like Chris Middleton because of the ailments that Giannis is dealing with and the matchup itself. I know we're not in the blowout predicting business, but James, you have to think that's the case going up against the sad Warriors team.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has to cross our mind, especially, when we're considering we have guys like Luka Doncic and James Harden on the slate at the same time. So, I mean, it definitely has to play part. But, this is a type of scenario that we talked about prior to hopping on. If we do get Giannis at sub 10% ownership, that happens probably twice over the course of an 82-game season. And that's the type of scenario where Golden State plays out of their mind to keep this game close. And Giannis plays 33, 34 minutes and gives us 80 fantasy points at 6% ownership and wins you a slate. And that's... I'm not sitting here saying that we should roster Giannis over Harden and Luka because I don't believe that to be true. But I think there is a path if you are making multiple lineups, if you're someone who MMEs, if you're someone who plays 150 lineups, you're gonna want to have shares to Giannis, even if you're someone who makes 10 lineups. Fancy, why not put Giannis in 1 or 2 over Harden and Luka? Play 8 of 10 with Harden or Luka, and then play 2 of 10 with Giannis, because at the end of the day, we know he has as much upside as any other player in the NBA because of what he can do. And it's not even just offensively, it's defensively, given he can block 5 shots tonight and get us 3 steals. And then what are we talking? Then on FanDuel, we're talking about a guy who's going to win the slate. So I mean, I get it why you have hesitations, because the knee has obviously been concerning and the minutes are evident of that. And that's probably why I like the guy below him more. I love Brandon Ingram without Drew Holiday. I mean, Brandon Ingram might be my favorite play on the slate if we didn't have James Harden available to us, So, yeah, I get the concerns, but in most spots, I'm just pivoting to Ingram anyways. Ultimately, end of the day, I'm just pivoting to Brandon Ingram over Giannis.
And for those of you that are watching us right now and thinking, well, Harden versus Giannis, it seems pretty obvious. Harden, no Westbrook. I mean, it's a given, right? I'm just going to say this, from watching the Rockets, and I watch every single team. It's impossible to watch every minute of every game, but I chart what teams I watch. So I personally get exposure so I can physically see how these offenses are flowing. Russell Westbrook is a liability when it comes to shooting the basketball. That's why James Harden takes so many shots, particularly from downtown. Russell Westbrook, when he has the ball, he tries to drive every single time, has zero confidence in his shot. So how do I view that? Yeah, Westbrook's out. Harden's usage will go up a little bit, but it's not going to be astronomical. He's always going to get a ton of shots. This is his world in Houston. It's his rocket ship, and he can take it whatever direction he can, and most of the time, that's going to be up. Continuing talking about small forwards, though, we mentioned Giannis, mentioned Brandon Ingram. Then we move down the price range just a little bit, go for some of the mid-tier and value options, and you have TJ Warren in there. Interesting situation that we're monitoring with Indiana. No Malcolm Brogdon, but we also may not be without DeMontis.
He's in.
He is in. Okay. So he's in. Okay. So I was going to say lock and load with Warren if he wasn't out, but he's in. But still with Warren, he's still been able to produce. Yep. And I like him. And again, I not only like him for the scoring, but I also like him for the elbow defense as well. This is a guy that will get steals in the lane. So with Warren, James, I actually do approve of this guy being in your playbook tonight, if that means anything.
I appreciate the approval for sure, and it does mean something, dear, very dear to my heart. But I mean, Fancy, we knew coming out of college, and we've known since he's entered the league. Like, if there was one thing that we know about TJ Warren, it's that he can score the basketball, and it's not to say Malcolm Brogdon is this elite scorer, but Malcolm Brogdon's leaving 17 points on the table, and Jeremy Lamb is very inconsistent. Miles Turner is very inconsistent in terms of scoring. And TJ Warren's been that guy. He's averaged over 20 points a game over his last 5, 23 essentially over his last 5, 35 fantasy points over that span. It's not an easy matchup. Likely going to see a lot of Jimmy Butler in his face, and that's not fun either. But I don't have a problem with TJ Warren here. He's been really good without Brogdon. He's going to continue to be really good without Brogdon. Indiana kind of sneaky tonight. Aaron Holiday, TJ Warren, even Sabonis playing. Not going to be a very highly owned game because it's going to be a low, slow-paced, low total. But I kind of like Indiana for GPPs. Warren probably leading the charge. And then I think Eric Gordon's probably my favorite value down here, Fancy. And I put Daniel House in his write-up as well because I think you can – we don't need to elaborate on them both. Eric Gordon.
You're chasing the points. That's what you're doing.
I mean, we're chasing the points. Gordon's going to score. House is going to have available peripheral stats to him now that Russell Westbrook's not running around the floor stealing all of them. We've seen in multiple occasions where Russell Westbrook has been on the floor. Daniel House has 7 or 8 rebounds. So I think they're both really strong. I think you can play them both in all formats tonight considering their price tags.
Let's also talk about one more guy because this is the guy that I've been watching, especially with Drew Holiday out. Etuan Moore.
Yep.
Again, when we're looking in that price range, that 4K price range, and yes, you mainly just need points, but I love it, James, when I start to see a guy like Etuan Moore put up at least 3 boards per game, coming off of a 7 rebounding game, also steals in 4 of his last 5 games as well. So there's a little bit of multi-category potential with Etuan Moore over his last few games, and he's playing in the 20s as well. So you're looking to be a little bit different. Again, the Stars and Scrubs build. Moore's in a good spot as well. We mentioned Redick, but Etuan Moore, James, another another guy. If he's getting you those steals, those defensive stats will translate into more minutes, and he'll be left out there on the floor for longer.
Yeah, I mean, the Pelicans' value is interesting. Redick, Hart, and Moore can all be viable considering there's no Holiday, and they've kind of axed out guys like Frank Jackson and Alexander Walker just kind of out of the rotation, and they're just playing these.
Weird. They were so, let's just say, liberal with their rotation at the beginning of the season, and you would think as things continue to really not work for them and they wait on Zion that they would continue testing out their depth and their younger guys.
And develop. They're not developing anything. They're playing Etuan Moore. It's weird. It's weird, but like, because why don't you develop your first round draft pick over a guy like Etuan Moore? I don't get it. Both of us don't get it. But I mean, as the season wears on and Etuan Moore continues to play 25 minutes a night, I think we can continue to look at him, considering he's taken 10 plus shots in 3 of his last 4 too. So I think Etuan Moore's fine. I prefer Gordon and House probably a little bit to him, considering game environment. Chicago's defense has actually been much improved since Chris Dunn's entered the starting lineup. But I do think Etuan Moore is in play as well.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that, because that's about the only thing that the Bulls have going for them right now is Chris Dunn's defense. That's about really it. It's not going to be marketing.
It's definitely not going to be marketing, Finsty, especially when he starts at center tonight.
Oy. Gewalt. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's move on to power forwards, though, because John Collins, who wasn't involved in that 269 combined point total the last time these two teams faced off, so it'll be interesting because PJ Tucker will not be able to pose much of a threat to John Collins. So you have him there, and Serge Ibaka as well, similarly priced on both sites, actually the same 7,400 on FanDuel. So looking between the two, James, you put both of these guys in the playbook. Who do you prefer between Collins and Serge Ibaka tonight?
I probably prefer Collins for game environment purposes. Again, that game is going to pop off. There's a 237 total and all the potential in the world for this just to be complete shootout. So I'd probably lean Collins. I'm probably not going either route, to be perfectly honest, Fancy. I'm probably going down, and I'm probably going to play a lot of Derek Favors, who gets Chicago front court. He's going to kill Chicago front court. I'm going to play a lot of Aaron Gordon. I think Aaron Gordon has been in a tremendous rhythm. He's averaging a double-double against Washington this year. He's averaging a double-double since John Isaac has gone down. And he's still priced really, really fairly at 6,200. I mean, if we get the 20 actual point Aaron Gordon with these peripheral stats, we're talking about a guy who's going to go for 40-plus fantasy points at 6,200. And that's the type of upside he can win a slate. I think Lauri Markkanen is interesting tonight. We saw it without Wendell Carter Jr. 28 actual points with 9 rebounds just last game. And he's kind of priced pretty fairly at 6,300. And then I originally anticipated Daniel Gafford would be the guy to start at center. But we saw there have been reports that Thad Young was the one practicing with the first unit. I
saw that.
During practice yesterday. So that kind of means Lauri Markkanen is going to shift to center, which is why we like Derek Favors so much, because even though Derek Favors listed as power forward, is played all his time at center, and Thaddeus Young starts at power forward. I mean, he gets Brandon Ingram, essentially like a similar player. Ingram obviously younger, more athletic than Thaddeus Young, but we shouldn't really be worrying about Brandon Ingram defense, and that's been really good given the extra run lately. I love Thaddeus Young all formats. As much as, I did write Collins and Ibaka up because I like them, there are just every other route that I just mentioned is probably the preferred route to take tonight.
And I'm with you on that, James, because in the starting 5 video, I actually put both Aaron Gordon and Derek Favors. Right. Guys, in 3 weeks from now, we're all going to be sitting there when Aaron Gordon is all of a sudden 7,800 to 8,000. This Isaac's not coming back for a while. I'm telling you, and they're too top heavy. We're all going to be kicking ourselves, being like, remember a few weeks ago when this guy was under 6,000, now 6,200. Remember that? Well, let's make a memory from this and put him in our lineups and win with this guy tonight, because 6,200 is a steal for Aaron Gordon at this point against this Wizards team. I don't care if the Wizards end up winning. You said it before, averaging a double-double against them. The last time he was active against them, a double-double, boom, back-to-back double-doubles. This isn't coincidence. They don't have anybody else. And they start Kem Birch tonight, and I just laugh at them because it's a joke that they want to keep Gordon at the 3. I think it's comical. Kem Birch can't handle the 4, and they'll know that pretty early into this game. And Mr. Gordon's going to shift right up to power forward and grab a ton of rebounds, James. That is one of my favorite values of the night, and it'll continue being my favorite value of the night until 3 weeks from now when he's 7,800, 8,000, and then we're debating whether or not to pay for him.
We probably won't, and I know John won't, because John is not an Aaron Gordon truther like us, Fensty. I would just want to know, Thad Young is starting, so thank God. That made me look really smart. It was perfectly aligned where they announced Thad Young starting as we talk about it. And I just want to throw one more power forward out there, and it's Michael Porter Jr. We already know Will Barton is not playing tonight. And I think Michael Malone realizes that he's probably, Jokic is their best player, and on a inconsistent basis, right. He's their most talented player. But I think that is slowly Michael Malone's realizing that Michael Porter is probably actually the guy with the most talent on this team, and that's why we've seen the run that he's gotten lately. We've even seen a start when Gary Harris missed. We just saw Will Barton shift up to shooting guard, and they started Porter at small forward. I think they could do that tonight. I think it's more of a tournament play because of that. It's a little worrisome that, it's a late start, so we're not going to know if Michael Porter Jr. is going to be officially starting or not. So I think he's an excellent tournament play at sub 4K across the industry, because if he starts, there's 30, 40 fantasy point upside, given the fact that he's going to shoot, and he's going to shoot more. And then when he gets the ball, guess what? He's going to shoot a couple more times, and then he's going to grab some rebounds for us too. So I think Michael Porter could be an elite value tonight that luckily we're not going to find out. So it's probably going to depress his ownership, and I love that.
There you go with Michael Porter Jr. Again, when you think about the Nuggets and how much depth they have, a lot of teams have inquired about Michael Porter Jr., and they've made him unavailable. This guy's a piece for the future. They think they got a steal. Dealt with the back injury last year and coming into the season as well. They felt that they got a steal in him, and they are keeping him. He is a building block for their future. Just want to say this before we move on to center, James. I want you to remember this date, and I want all of you to remember this date. December 17th, 2019. That's the last time Derek Favors didn't grab 10-plus boards.
Yep.
Just putting that out there. Remember that. Almost a month. And that he qualifies at power forward on FanDuel. We talked about him already. That right there is another good value option against a very decrepit Bulls team right now. I'm sorry, Grande. Don't take it personally. We all love it anyway. We just don't love your Bulls. Let's move on to center. You mentioned Jokic already coming off the 47-point game. So you have Jokic against Dallas, and then you've got Vucevic versus Washington, which, James, I feel like with Vucevic, and we were talking about an Orlando stack before, and I will be stacking Fultz, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Vucevic in there. It's just too easy at this point. Not only does this guy make double-doubles look easy, but he's done it against Washington. We saw a 30-point game against them in one of the last games that he played them in. You got to lock and load with this guy.
Yeah, they're the worst rebounding team in basketball, and Vucevic is coming off 24 boards in his last outing. Let's say he just scores 10 more. He gets to a season average in points. We're talking about a guy who goes for 60 plus. There's tremendous upside for both Nicholas tonight. Vucevic and Jokic, I think they're both elite at this tier. I think there's no denying that. The price is a little worrisome for Vucevic. I like them more at that lower 8K tier, but he's given us 47 plus in 3 straight against Washington, so I really shouldn't be worried. I'm probably just nitpicking because we had him at such.
Here's what you do, James. You want to do a mini game stack where you can include Vucevic, put Jordan McRae in on the other side, and there you go. You save a little bit there.
True, and you or not even McRae. You could play Ish Smith on 5,200 on FanDuel, so you could do either. I actually like. As great as they are, the Miles Turner thing is kind of not as appealing to me anymore with Sabonis back, but I have found a ton of roster constructions with Clint Capella and or Bobby Portis in both of them. And Portis primarily, I mean, we know Julius Randle's out with a personal matter. We know there's no Marcus Morris. We've seen Portis start. I mean, look, if that game blows out, we're going to get blowout run from Bobby Portis. Right. If that game stays close, he's still going to play 25 minutes or so at a sub 4K price tag. And we know Bobby Portis does not need a long time to fill up a stat sheet. Plus, Fensty, we know, and we've kind of been talking about it and alluding to it all year, Utah defensively is not what they were. And that's primarily because they don't have Derek Favors there next to Rudy Gobert anymore. And that obviously takes away a lot because Derek Favors is a very good rim protector as well as Rudy Gobert. He made up for a lot of Rudy Gobert's deficiencies. Well, now he has Royce O'Neal and Bojan Bogdanovic, both 6'7", 6'6" maybe, playing next to him at power forward at times. So I love Bobby Portis tonight, and the industry is following suit where he's projected to be the highest owned player on DraftKings and probably going to be one of the highest owned players on FanDuel as well. And then Capella, I mean, look, there's no Westbrook. Last time we saw no Westbrook, he grabbed 19 rebounds. Last game we saw him, he went for 30 actual points, 60 fantasy points against a tough Philly team. Fetsy, we were just talking about that Jokic game, right? Who did that come against?
That came against the Atlanta Hawks.
Oh, okay. Fetsy, who does Clint Capella play tonight?
The Atlanta Hawks, which pretty much is a forfeit. That's how great the matchup is.
Okay. I was just checking. So as much as I like Nicholas, I think Capella and Portis are making they're the two guys that are finding a lot of my roster construction. And that's where you differ, though. You differ with the Nicholas, and you differ with Jokic, you differ with Vucevic, because everyone's going to be playing Capella and Portis. They are in a great spot, though. So,
can I ask you one question about Portis?
Of course.
Last night, whacked Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the head. Got fined 25 large for it, ejected for the game. So I have to ask you this. Do you think that Portis, and you can just give me your opinion here, James. You watch a lot of basketball. Do you think he'll play a little bit timid tonight, knowing that the league will probably have some extra eyes on him after what happened last night?
I think he's crazy, so I don't. I think he's a crazy person. I mean, he's fought his teammates in the past.
He fought Nikola Mirotic.
I mean, I don't think they're timid and Bobby Portis are two words that we are ever going to say again, in one sentence.
Though, right?
It's a fair question. It's a fair question.
The league's going to be watching him tonight to see how he reacts to the fine, to see if he plays with a certain amount of physicality. I just don't want Bobby Portis all of a sudden standing at the arc the entire game.
I don't think Bobby Portis will do that. I think it's a fair question for most players, but just knowing who Bobby Portis is, I think that it's out of his mind already. Like, I don't think he's even thinking about it. I think he probably blacked out when he did it.
Man, 25 large. To him, that's pocket change. For the rest of us, that's like a year and a half salary right there. He's James Grande. I'm Justin Fensterman. You can follow James Grande at _real_Grande_domination, because that's what he does. Wrote an incredible playbook. It's a very generous slate. James and I were talking about it before. You can follow me at Fensty Sports and catch Alarm After Hours on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius 210, XM87 tonight, midnight Eastern. Adam Rodas and I will be on full tilt reacting to everything that's gone on in tonight's amazing, juicy 9-game slate. For James, I'm Fensty. Good luck, and let's all dominate FA Nation.